Welcome to Beginner Basics. Today I teach you the fundamentals of dry brushing, one of the easiest and most important techniques in miniature painting. This one is perfect prep for contrast paints and works great for Slapchop style painting. We'll work on a scaven. I primed it with mechanical standard grey. You can see the can here in the corner. Any grey or black primer works too. Before you prime the mini, make sure that you removed all mold lines. Because dry brushing highlights every raised area, mold lines will stand out a lot if you leave them out. Also make sure your primer layer is fully dry before you start. If the surface is even slightly tacky, the brush will drag and create streaks. Let's talk about brushes. For dry brushing you want soft bristles. Nothing stiff, nothing scratchy. Specialty dry brushes work great. But if you're a beginner, an eyeshadow blending brush is a fantastic and cheap alternative. I use two types of palettes when dry brushing. This 5-minute DIY dry brush palette and this texture palette. Both work very well and they are much better than wiping your brush on paper towels. If you're completely new, dry brushing is a highlight technique where you use very little paint on a mostly dry brush. The goal is to lightly skim the brush over the raised details, so only the highest points catch the color. And that's exactly why we need a dry brush palette. We load the brush with a bit of paint and then remove a lot of it again. The palette lets us do that gently without damaging the bristles and without drying the brush out instantly. For the highlights I'm using white acrylics. Any brand you have will work. You can also use a light grey or bone color if you want a softer highlight or if it matches your final color scheme better. Before loading the brush, I slightly dampen it with clear water. This helps the bristles activate and keeps the brush from becoming dusty or chalky. I remove the excess water on paper. The brush should feel just slightly damp, not wet. Now I load just a small amount of paint onto the tip. You don't need much. Then I remove almost all of it on my dry brush palette. You can see the brush looks almost clean. That's exactly what we want. I always test the brush on my hand before starting. If you can still see paint on your skin at the first touch, you've got too much paint loaded. Remove a bit more on the palette. Once the brush leaves almost no mark, it's ready for dry brushing. When applying the paint, work with a very light and almost floating motion. Don't press the brush down. Let it skim across the erased areas. Think of it as catching the highest points where the light would naturally hit. If you feel the brush is running out of paint, you can go back to the palette and use the remaining paint on it, or reload the brush with a tiny amount of fresh paint. For small or deep areas where the big brush can't reach, switch to a smaller flat brush. Moisten it the same way, wipe off the excess water, load a tiny bit of paint, remove almost all of it, and then apply gently, controlled strokes. And here's the final result. A clean bright dry brush layer that perfectly prepares the miniature for contrast paints or any Slapchop style workflow. I hope this was helpful. If you liked this tutorial, please subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments which beginner basics topic you want next.